Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking something pretty wild, a super simple economic sketch that somehow managed to shape decades of global tax policy, but might actually be built on a bit of a myth. Let's dive in. Think about this for a second. If the government actually cuts your taxes, could it somehow end up making more money? Sounds totally backwards, right? I mean, it's a huge paradox, but it's the exact question that kicked off a massive, decades-long macroeconomic debate. Enter the Laffer curve. Legend has it this whole concept was literally sketched out on a restaurant napkin back in 1974 by an economist named Arthur Laffer. It's basically a theory that maps out the trade-off between tax rates and total government revenue. It suggests there's this optimal sweet spot, claiming that if you raise taxes too high, you'll eventually cause government revenue to drop.
So, let's jump straight into Section 1, the famous napkin sketch.
The underlying logic here is actually pretty bulletproof because it's rooted in two undeniable extremes. At a 0% tax rate, well, obviously the government collects zero revenue. But what about a 100% tax rate? The theory assumes that literally nobody's going to work or invest if the state just takes every single penny, meaning revenue is still zero. So, logically, economists conclude there must be a revenue-maximizing peak hanging out somewhere in the middle. Now, as famous as that 1970s napkin is, this intuitive idea is way older. All the way back in 1844, a French engineer named Jules Dupuy basically hit the nail on the head. He wrote that by gradually increasing a tax, it reaches a level where the yield is at a maximum, and beyond that, the yield diminishes. Actually, even Adam Smith touched on this general idea back in 1776. Which brings us to Section 2, Politics and Deficits. You see, world leaders quickly started betting big on this theory. The hope was that lowering rates would kickstart so much economic growth that the tax cuts would essentially pay for themselves. Right after Laffer's 1974 sketch, Ronald Reagan slashed the top U.S. income tax rate from 70% down to 50% in 1981. Over in the UK, Margaret Thatcher reduced top rates from 83% down to 60%, and jumped to 2017, Donald Trump cut U.S. corporate tax rates from 35% down to 21%. But did those cuts actually pay for themselves? Well, the reality is pretty complex. While those eras often did see some really robust business growth, those massive promised surges in self-paying tax receipts, they didn't always materialize. Instead, they often just contributed to widening federal deficits and rising government debt. Turns out, when it comes to cutting taxes, there's rarely a guaranteed free lunch.
All right, let's move to Section 3, Normal versus Prohibitive Ranges.
When economists are hunting for that exact peak revenue spot, they basically split the curve right down the middle. First, you have the normal range. This is the upward slope where raising taxes does exactly what you'd expect. It successfully increases total revenue. But then comes the prohibitive range. That's the downward slope where taxes are so high they stifle the economy, forcing people to hide income, barter, or honestly just choose leisure over working, which ultimately decreases total revenue. So what exactly pushes an entire economy over the edge from the normal zone into that prohibitive zone? It all boils down to something called behavioral elasticity. This is basically a metric that measures how drastically people alter their working or investing habits whenever a tax rate changes. And a super deep macroeconomic analysis by the National Bureau of Economic Research tells us something incredibly important here. They found that the U.S. economy generally operates entirely within that normal range. To actually hit that prohibitive range, where tax cuts would magically pay for themselves, you'd need extremely high tax rates or a population that is just ridiculously sensitive to any tax changes. Moving right along to Section 4,
The flat Laffer curve. Here's where the plot twists.
Those simplistic napkin sketches, they kind of fall apart in the real world. And that's because they assume a single super uniform tax base. But let's be real, our tax codes are an absolute labyrinth. We've got strict brackets, itemized deductions, caps, and totally different rates depending on if you're earning capital gains or just standard wages. And when you finally account for that real-world messiness, the math completely shifts. Old economic models that used overly broad or narrow tax bases, they created these really dramatic, steep peaks. But when researchers apply a realistic, true tax base to their models, that sharp peak completely vanishes. The top of the curve just flattens out.
Why does it flatten out like that? It's human nature, really. As top statutory taxes rise, high-income earners don't necessarily just stop working. Instead, they shift their money into tax-deductible activities, like charities. Businesses respond by reclassifying their income into the corporate sector. So, as that ordinary tax base slowly erodes, the peak of the whole curve just flattens right out.
And guess what? It gets even flatter. When economists start factoring in how these top rates bump up against all the other taxes out there, stuff like payroll, corporate, state, and local taxes, the peak transforms into this massive, wide plateau. And on that plateau, total government revenue barely budges, even if the tax rates swing wildly back and forth. All this complex, modern modeling leaves us with a shockingly tiny number, 0.1%. That's right, modern models show that if you crank the top rate all the way up to its absolute theoretical maximum, the long-run federal revenue gain is just 0.1% of GDP. Literally almost nothing.
Let's bring this home with Section 5, the real trade-off.
Okay, so if shifting tax rates back and forth across that giant flat plateau doesn't actually bring in mountains of new cash for the government, then maximizing revenue isn't really the real policy choice at all, is it? As those top rates go up, tax progressivity increases, but GDP goes down. The true trade-off we're making at the top of that curve is completely philosophical. Raising the top rate increases wealth equity, which economists measure as progressivity, but it comes at the direct cost of decreasing raw economic efficiency, or GDP. On the flip side, lowering the rate decreases progressivity, but gives a boost to GDP. The choice is strictly a tug-of-war between equity and efficiency. It's got almost nothing to do with filling government coffers.
So we need to completely reframe how we look at tax policy debates. That steep, mountain-like peak of revenue, yeah, it's an illusion born from oversimplified math. The actual potential to change revenue at the very top is surprisingly minimal. The true debate here is a fundamental societal choice: equity versus efficiency.
So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. If that revenue peak is actually just a big, flat plateau, have we literally been arguing over the wrong metric this entire time? The next time you hear politicians debating about massive tax cuts paying for themselves, keep that flat curve in mind. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning the consensus. Catch you next time.